Hey everybody, welcome to episode 119 of Tactical Crouch. Kickedtripod here with Yiska and Volamel. The crew is back and feels good to be back. Delay today. Yiska had some eye problems after watching Super's Genji for 3 maps. Just never totally recovered, eh?
Joe already hates how where John is taking this because he doesn't see it coming. He doesn't know where this topic will be going.
I don't know if I know where this topic is going to be going, honestly. I was just saying hi.
I have ideas, but
I mean, you were there, right? Like,
true.
That, yeah,
it's true.
We'll get to it.
Definitely is on the list of things. Probably will take up more time than you might expect. So, welcome.
I'll keep it tame. I
want to make sure this is working. It's not working. 1 second. Second.
I don't think it's that bad though. Again, like we'll get to it, but
yeah,
I think we got most of it out during the weekend.
Yeah,
and by we I mean you.
Discuss the quintessence of it, and
yes.
And I will still be hated for it. That's the beauty of it.
Okay. Well, I heard Flat Chat was great today, so the bar has been set for ridiculousness today. We'll see how he can do. Chat, everybody, thank you for being here. Welcome to episode 119. If you haven't listened to us before, we're a competitive Overwatch podcast. We record live every Monday and Wednesday at noon at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod. Come join us live. We're trying to get to partner, and right now we are doing just that. And if you like the show, want to support it, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch, subscribe at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod, or leave us a 5-star iTunes review. We really appreciate it. You can find the show on YouTube, on Twitch VODs, or anywhere where you can download podcasts. That's it. Let's get into the news. Brought to you by our patron producers: Battlecrab Pin, Lolchin, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Porkchop, Sammy, Kasha67, Coochie Kopi, Sharp Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Refine Bean, Rex Zane, Roger B, Fabled Steven, Owen, Chris R34444, Yiska is holding me hostage. Please send help. I'm under Yiska's desk. Please send help. And Yiska says, Fisher's fish, 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 fisher, fisher. Thank you so much. Jeez. I hate you guys so much. In more than I don't hate you. It's just mean. Just mean. All right. Let's get to the first things first. Jon Spector did a little Twitter Q&A. And somebody was so kind to, I don't know if Siegel, #1 fanboy, actually did the kind of transcribing or if he's got some bot, but if they did, thank you so much for doing that. Let's talk about what we learned from the Jon Spector Owl Q&A, shall we? First things first. We're just going to go through it one by one. We're going to take the Twitter questions, read out Spector's answers, and then discuss if there's anything to discuss. In the time in between playoffs and finals, we're traveling logistics and such. How do you plan to fill the time with hype and not lose excitement? Spector says, we've been thinking a lot about this. It's not confirmed, but ideally we slot the All-Stars events during that break. I think it will also help to have a few matches prior to Finals 2 since we resume competition with the Final 4 team bracket versus just one last match.
I don't actually know how it's scheduled, but couldn't you just have the NA bracket earlier and then have the Asia bracket play out the week after? And then you had an easier time because like NA is already finished and they can then travel and then
quarantine
Asia starts playing. Maybe
doesn't that
I haven't actually looked. Sorry.
Doesn't that kind of give NA an extra time of rest, even though they're going to be traveling for some of that and quarantining for some of that, which has to be factored in.
I mean,
yeah, I think
Asia is resting beforehand, right? Same difference, right? Unless, and then if you deem practice time off before the final more importantly, but then again there's travel, and then again there's quarantine, where we still have the question if there will be practice accommodations in quarantine, and if that's even possible. So I don't know. That's just
both
my
both
thoughts.
ways have like inherent problems, but it's the bullet you got to bite with COVID. I think it's not perfect, but it's you got to do what you got to do if you want to have these live but lacking audience kind of finals. Somebody's probably going to have to eat it.
All-Stars are great, but if Overwatch League can execute content and like community members are still making content, I don't think people will be really starved for like those games. I think that they'll be really excited to be, to like have the build up to it, have the content going into it. I think it just kind of depends on how Overwatch League executes it. And I would say that they've been relatively hit and miss just overall on the content this year. Some really great highlights and moments, and then there's just definitely been some like new day of Overwatch League, press reset, do the same thing over and over again.
I think this is like a very big topic that I could run on and gripe with, so please stop me if you do not want to hear this. I think the content for the Overwatch League has been like very phoned in, and I think we need like to finally see what we're getting, because it really does feel like it's just Overwatch League. You get your highlights and that's it. Why aren't we getting like a little bit more in-depth player features? Why is that not like the league's doing?
Are other esports doing more in-depth player features? I don't watch like COD League, and then I know League is obviously much more mature. But would you say that other esports during COVID are executing better than Overwatch League with this?
Well, some of it is not really down to COVID, right? Like, for instance, before finals, before Worlds, we usually get a World song. For instance, right? Sure. And we probably get two, right? Like, there's usually one that's directly connected to the esports, and then there's one that's usually about the game League of Legends in general. So you think KDA and Rise. Were they in the same year? I don't even remember. I think they might have been. Or KDA was the year before. I'm not sure.
I mean, then you had like Phoenix and then the True Damage one. So
yeah.
Riot does a good job with like creating content. It's obviously not like super player driven. And I agree that like other esports don't necessarily lean into like a lot of the player driven things. They kind of leave that up to the community. But I still think that could be done. I don't think that just because nobody's doing it, that doesn't mean we can't.
I totally agree with you.
To Yiska's point, I think like we could do like these songs. And I think, I've kind of banged that drum with like the Zed and the DJ Khaled performances in the past in certain discussions. So it's like, what else are we? It's not what are we going to get? It's what else is the league going to do? Because it can't just be show up for the games and then, we go quiet. And again, like, All-Stars is another just extra set of games that these kids have to play. It's like, I don't know. Do they even want to? Maybe they just want to break.
And I assume that any of the teams that are traveling probably can't play during All-Stars, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Like, which means that you kind of take the teams, the top four teams, the top four teams of Overwatch League, you take those players out, which
I think you can reframe All-Stars to be something else.
I mean, I think there's a lot of show matches. You could do a community tournament. You could do something to highlight tier 2 there. I totally agree with you on the sense of like, regardless of what other esports are doing, like there is ways that Overwatch League could be doing better. And I don't also want to be overly harsh in them and saying like, why haven't you cracked the code when nobody else really is either?
It's less of cracking the code.
They definitely have. Yeah. Others have definitely cracked the code. Yeah.
I think Riot in particular definitely does a really good job with like the supplementary content. Whereas like I think we're just showing up and
at least
like
especially
the bare minimum. And at least like you can bag on like NALCS and like there are some definite problems there, but again, they still give you more than I think what we're even doing.
Here's something I'd like to see. You know how we do this Roll Stars thing? Just create like a show where you bring people on that vote in your thing and have them explain their rationale with clips and whatnot, make it high effort, go through the actual progression of this player's career and just explain his journey throughout the season and why he deserves to be a Roll Star. Like, that would be amazing. Like, we're always complaining that we're only looking at the numerical results of people voting. Just give me the reason that way. And then also make it fun, for sure. Like, you absolutely can. And then back it up, get Captain Planet in, have him like weigh in on that discussion and quantify that in some way. I think that from a narrative point of view, like, that's dope content.
I think even doing like an interview series leading into like the final 4 teams and playoffs would be great supplementary content that I think people would like really enjoy, that the league kind of does, and not like leaving it up to like teams to figure that out. Because again, like, and this does go towards the teams as well, because a lot of the content is still just like these really outdated, like somewhat reality kind of peek behind the curtains with like a lot of gameplay footage that like just not interesting. I don't know. It and then it's like, you know, fun stuff like the Custom News Network and like cooking with Kareev and agilities, and that's fine and dandy and people love that stuff. But I think like the league confront a lot more of the extra content that would go a long way. I think a lot of it could be player centric. It doesn't have to be, but
I think the league is just too hands-on to allow people to make really good viral content, because they over
so why don't they make it though?
Well, so
that's the question.
No, I'm saying the league, the amount of oversight that they have in all of their different content is just insane. Whether it's granting interviews or whatever else, like, you don't really get that real genuine kind of lightning in the bottle content that you do when you have other people going through other interviews or third parties doing content, which I think is a problem in of itself, and something that Blizzard has been criticized for so long, and why Preach just had Ian Hazakostas on for the World of Warcraft Shadowlands. It's one of the first times where we've been able to see like a content creator sit down across from a developer and like, nah, I disagree with you. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Talk to me more about this. And they invited that in. And like, in the same way, like every time we see, you know, a player interview, it's always these canned questions, canned responses, and no number of clips, I think, is going to change that. The league either needs to pivot their policy on like, let's go in here and talk about like maybe a little bit more controversial topics. Let the players kind of be themselves and trust that the teams have done enough PR training that they don't go off the rails. Or I personally would just rather see like, I don't know, like hire a team, make some in-game cinematic stuff, or make some like skits or whatever, and do that instead.
Well, maybe not the skits, but I think we're definitely like on the same page in terms of like in-game celebration of like these big events and like the awards. And we did get that last year with, you know, the road to like the award ceremony with like all of the little, not clips, but these little, I don't even know the word. I'm going to say the wrong word. These little bumpers for the MVP awards and the Roll Stars, and like kind of like bigging them up, and that was great. We just need more of that. I think like a regular content series with a dedicated content team internally, going into these players' histories, going into their stories, like sitting down with them either in the off season or leading into playoffs when there's like some sort of a break, so you're not just like intruding on their practice, I think would go a long way. I think it would really kind of sell a lot of these personalities that we don't get to see, especially some of these Asian teams. Definitely tough to really get into like who some of these players are. It's something I could, you know, kind of rant all day about, so I don't want to completely derail the show into talking about Overwatch League content, but I think the league could do a much better job. I think it's kind of phoned in, and
I agree.
I get COVID's been messy, but we gotta do a little bit more.
Yeah, I can't speak to how phoned in it is or whatever, but definitely want more. Next one, were there other options that were proposed regarding the tournament format before it was finalized? If so, what were they? Thank you from It's Just Chris. Spector says, we spent a few months working on format and talked to all the teams multiple times. We had concepts for 12 and 16 teams, some group play, round robin ideas too. We liked this plan best as it felt more fair to all teams, worked for both regions, and should be exciting for fans. Yiska, more fair? Everybody in? More fair?
No, from my point of view, but like the distinction of fairness and the relevance of fairness this season is so small that I really don't care. Like, do you? Like, it's either way is completely fine. Like, this is a rough season. If you want to get everyone in, I will say, if actually by some meta miracle a team outside the top 16 or even top 12 wins, well, I'm just going to grind my teeth and not talk about it, won't I? Like, it's
gonna be another season 1. London makes the miracle plays. Yeah, it's. I'll let me pose you a specific question, Yiska. If COVID never happens and we still get hero pools and travel, happens, but it's not super like detrimental to the player's health, do you still feel like this season is rough? Do you feel like it's fair to invite everybody, or do you want that kind of hard and fast cutoff?
That would entail. No, I think the reason why you don't want to cut off at 12 is because the regions are unequal, right? Because everyone can't play each other. So it would, for instance, be unfair for London or Chengdu to be excluded from the playoffs.
Of course.
Because they would have likely been, okay, Chengdu not, London maybe, would have been one of the top 12 teams.
Sure.
So now how do you determine if they are in or out?
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying with travel is that you get equal amount of games. COVID doesn't happen, so you don't have these like massive separations.
You go 12. Very easy. Yeah.
Knowing what hero pools does to things, I'm almost okay if we're going to say at the start of the season, or at least like going into the season, that hero pools is going to be a thing. I'm almost okay kind of opening it up to everybody, is because
why have a season then?
Why have hero pools? I'm cool with cutting it at 12, but hero pools changes things so much so rapidly that you really don't like. You can have a good idea of like who the top teams are, but that middle pack is so gray that it feels really dirty to just go, well, you didn't know about hero pools, couldn't prepare for it, didn't build a roster to kind of like fit the bill. Unlucky. I guess you got to play next season. Feels very gross to me. So I think it's fair to open it up. I'm not mad at like leaving it at 12 or maybe increasing it to a higher number, but yeah, I think I sit on the opposite side of the fence, like now and like in a hypothetical like COVID removed world.
Yeah. I don't know.
So the next one we'll go to first map will be determined. How will the first map be determined in the final four? That was from Who. And Spector says, throughout the postseason, the higher seeded team will get to choose the first map from a map pool. Final four will start with the winners bracket teams taking the higher seed for the first match. If NA number 1 plays Asia number 1, then we'd use regular season results to seed.
Seems fine.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Next one. With LANs being announced as not taking place for the postseason, how much do you plan to, from a broadcast perspective, make the grand finals feel like a match worth $1.5 million on the line? Spector basically just says, we're exploring ways to add more interactivity to the viewing experience and to create great content.
That was my with the viewing experience.
My least favorite answer out of this whole thing. Definitely the most like we're gonna do our best.
PR.
We're working hard on that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and it's hard, but like the YouTube chat interaction doesn't help. That the YouTube chat is simply, and okay, I'm going to do it here. Praise Twitch chat, because Twitch chat as like a way to express hype works very well.
Sure,
and
I would agree.
Like emotes, I've talked about it before. In my mind, like what happens cognitively when I read chat after having been indoctrinated to Twitch over the years is like if someone pops off and chat goes very fast with the funny pictures, then that's a hype moment, as if a crowd is roaring. Maybe not to the very same degree, and not to the very same degree as being physically present in the arena, but it is some kind of substitute that probably like functions in a similar way, and that's something for the neuroscientists to figure out, or for the linguists. But yeah, I feel like interactivity. Like, I mean, you could think of ways, for instance, to have like a. Okay. Why does my brain give me that sound? So in my mind, I was like, maybe fans every couple of seconds like could use like a button, and then it would theoretically add to a number that would then get a threshold, an aggregate of how many people press that button, and would have like a noise. If you wonder, Vuvuzela. For those that remember that fateful World Cup.
Yeah, please God, no.
But yes, something like this maybe. Like,
you know who does a really good job at viewer experience interactivity? I think China does a really good job, and that's Obnoxious. You have chat scrolling across your screen and banners popping across.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and a Vuvuzela? You tell me. When I hear that, I go, okay, what does this mean? Unless you're reinventing the wheel, I don't like any of what I'm hearing, unless there's an off button.
I think that's also learned behavior, right?
What do you mean?
Like, I don't think anyone that actually grew up with vuvuzelas thinks like, I'm just tooting this horn to be obnoxious as possible. They actually think, wow, that's a hype sound. In the same way we think cheering is a hype sound.
For sure.
Like, if you actually listen to each individual cheer and how often your mom would be insulted during these cheers, you wouldn't like the individual cheer. You like the bulk of the sound and
100%.
the emotion you connect to it, right? So it is learned behavior, which is also, by the way, very, very hard to teach to people to appreciate.
Kind of take a long time.
Thing.
Yeah. So unless you're here for the Twitch vuvuzelas or the YouTube, trumpets for the next 10 years, I don't know, homie. I don't know. But I think there are ways to integrate some fun things in that aren't super intrusive. I certainly just hope this isn't like, guys, we figured out how to drop tokens on YouTube. Isn't that exciting? Wow. I hope it's not just like some phoned in nonsense again.
I would much rather, if that is it, I will
fun.
Be super happy. If they just are like, hey, drops enabled, let's go. That kind of stuff. Awesome. Anything less than that, or like I don't know, like some really crappy overlay on the Overwatch League website or whatever, I'd be bummed.
You can vote on the match on youtube.com.
The PR answer, the PR answer might end up biting them in the butt on this one. So how will finals in Asia affect the NA fans? Hey, we're going to try to hit as many fans as possible. Sure, great. I didn't even read the answer to that one. And then why only 2 teams from each region, at least for NA? The PR answer is we want to have the most hype around this one. The real answer is travel logistics.
Logistics are a nightmare.
Travel logistics.
Flying and COVID, it's really not good.
Yep, especially for like
they
weeks
got quarantine and visas and things like that.
All right, stop whispering.
Stop Blizzard, though.
Stop it. Formats: best of 5, best of 7. Semis are first to 3. Grand finals are first to 4.
This added context really. Why was this even brought up? Do you need more than a best of 7? Do we need a best of 11 to figure this out?
It's got to be over several days then, right? Like,
would you ever be interested in seeing 3 first to 3s?
So season 1? Yeah, no. I thought season 1. I really disliked season 1's playoffs.
It was, right? Wasn't it? 3 best of 5s?
It was 3 best of 5s, yeah. But still, like, it's separating it between the days. Like, it's very clear that, like, this team is better, this team is worse. Go next. I don't want to show up tomorrow. Like, showing up to the finals on Sunday live was boring.
Yeah, I think you got to do different weeks then. And
you could do that.
It's a gamble.
But you got that's a big dead space between, like, okay, this is the finals, and then we're coming back to the finals. Like, very weird.
What about 3 different
sort of, but it's
3
also
different first to 3s on 3 different hero pools?
No, so don't say that, because you know that they're like thinking that internally. Like,
John,
please.
I don't hate
Please.
it. That's no. John's completely right in saying that this is how we determine skill over this season. So if we want to ask that in playoffs, that's how you do it.
Technically speaking,
no cap.
Each team gets to choose. Agree. Each team gets to choose a DPS. Or they get to,
it's gotta be random. It's gotta be random.
Hold on. Let's just.
Who wants players to be in control of their own fate in this
random.
League?
Just do bans. Just do bans. But
that's different.
But like, and again, seriously, jokes aside for a second, like, there are ways in which, from a format perspective, I think it would be more exciting than just a simple first to 4. We're done in an afternoon, in and out, done.
You'd have. I
think kind of anticlimactic to me.
I think you'd have to do it like multiple weeks with multiple different hero pools, and then completely like rewrite everything that you've been saying all season long, where it's like, hey guys, playoffs are gonna take out hero pools. Guys, we're not gonna have hero pools in playoffs though, so sweet. And then come playoffs, we're gonna be like, just kidding, hero pools. But if that was to be omitted, hypothetically,
that is where this season falls apart from a format perspective. That promise right there.
I mean, if you say something and reiterate it umpteen different times, and then you completely just like backpedal on it like the hardest you've ever seen, then I'd say so. I'd say that's a pretty big
reiterated and backpedaled hard.
Yeah, every single like countdown cup, guys. Remember, playoffs don't have hero pools. Sweet.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. So, like, I agree that if we were going to do hero pools across the whole season and then include the playoffs, then yeah, I'm about it. That's what we're testing this season. Sweet. I'm not big on it. I'm not big on like the multiple weeks. I get traditional sports do like the whole like traveling season, like best of 7 in different cities, multiple days. I don't think esports needs to do that.
I actually kind of like it. It is actually growing on me just because there's a consistency. Of course, the underlying premise is no agree here, but once you have accepted hero pools, I think the logical conclusion is to go, as John said, best of 3 of best of 5s. A week break between each, and different hero pools for each one.
Different ones.
Now you gotta think about, maybe the hero pools would be then determined by the most, in aggregate, most banned heroes over the season, maybe? Just so
you'd have 1 week hero pools again, even though we changed the 2 week hero pools.
Oh, true.
To be fair, this was an off the cuff comment, and so
no, 100%.
Like, you know, all over the format idea is like, it's not really.
Yeah, I'm
of course it's not fleshed
this.
out, but like, so I think there's a few different ways that you could do it. You could literally do. I think you could do 4 days over 2 weekends, or I think you could also spread them out during the week. I think you could, like, I agree that the importance of having at least 2 games with rest time in between each game on the same hero pool would be the most consistent to the format that we ended the season with. Like there are ways. I think the question just kind of comes to like, how long do you want those to be? It's only going to be 2 teams. We already know that they're not even going to be on a LAN environment, which is really weird. We'll talk about that in a second. There's, I don't know. I'm not opposed to a scenario in which we got here through hero pools. I think that probably the last match, no matter what, should be no hero pools or maps or whatever. Like the last.
So how do you feel about semifinals? Hero pools?
I don't know how it would work. I'm just like, I can tell you, I'm kind of excited about the idea of consistency, but when I'm in bed, I'm just like, oh, that's such a bad idea, dude. How could I in the first?
Oh, I changed my mind on this like 4 times in this conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm live thinking about this, but I'm kind 100%. Of excited, entertaining that thought. Maybe I'm just excited that this thought is kind of like it resonates with some aspect of consistency here that I'd love to see. It's just possibly impossible.
Which I sympathize with. I get that, but it requires like such a big like overhaul of what you've already kind of put forward and planned that it doesn't seem likely. Also, me personally, not a big fan of like the continuous like playoff series across like a week. We tried that in season 1, wasn't a big fan of it, or at least like dabbled with it. I wouldn't say we went full like gung ho with it, but
we didn't give him a week, right? It was just the next
it was
day,
just
right?
over a weekend,
just
across
over
the next
weekend,
day. Yeah,
I mean, it is a gamble because there's definitely a scenario where after the first best of 3, you just know, or best of 5, chalk clap that like
last year. It was
like
wasn't a fun thing.
They're winning in the heart, and then the next week is just waiting for another clap where it's like, yeah, there's probably no coming back from this, dude. Like,
sure, I like. How often do you think like we're going to get those team across like those kind of teams across like the history of the Overwatch League? Though I think that's just like a special like kind of outlier case.
But second weeks of hero pools too have also
shifted. If kind of that's where you're
shifted
going.
That kind of stuff where there is this new like, imagine if it's just no hero pools week 1, Shock in Shanghai clap everybody. Or you know, whatever. And then they're playing the grand finals, and then or whatever. And week 2, there is a chance for the other teams to improve and to develop strategies to kind of counter the Super Genji or whatever else that you don't have to like. You weren't really planning for, and now your whole weekend is just kind of screwed.
See that feels, and again, I could be speaking from like a very elitist angle, but for me personally, I don't like hearing a narrative that we've kind of continued throughout the entire season. We want that to be trumped by the system, like having a structure that like ruins the narrative to like try to insert something fun, like just what if we had an upset for upset's sake? It's like
is that an upset? Is it an upset when a team does poorly one week and then in the same hero pool the next week improves?
I would say that 2 teams that have played incredibly well across the entire regular season to qualify for the playoffs get upset on a hero pool in the finals. I would say so. That just like how Paris winning is an upset, just like how Charge winning is an upset.
I have to think on that. I don't think I agree. I don't think that like Paris winning
was an upset.
Is it's tough because I think upset has like a few different like connotations attached to it. Like there is the upset in the sense of undeserved.
Sure, definitely not undeserved. I think Paris I can
agree,
beat the Shock, but at 2 different calibers of teams.
There's a chance that there's always a chance in any in any series that you're going to deal with a statistical upset is if we could throw on God mode and see the true percentage likelihood of 2 teams winning. I agree. There's a chance that one of those teams are going to win. And I don't agree with the sentiment that if the team that technically has a lower percentage to win actually wins being an upset. I don't think that is this like refuting of the entire system in the season that we built. And if it was, then what's the point of even having a grand finals? Just find the statistical one and just give them the trophy.
It's not about finding the statistical one. I think it's just about celebrating the best teams and trying to manufacture higher percentages of that upset happening with influencing hero pools or removing of hero pools at like like the last game. I think removing hero pools for the entirety of playoffs and the playoff kind of series, I think is fine. I think it gives teams enough time to kind of like understand the realm to be able to kind of figure out who's the best teams. This is like a very consistent argument I've had across the entire season with hero pools, so it's not completely brand new, but I think like just introducing it for introducing its sake, trying to like create upsets instead of just like celebrating who the best team is, I think, me personally, not a fan of.
But improving week over week isn't designed to like the whole week or whole idea of 2-week hero pools was to negate the chances of upsets.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
or to an extent,
de-escalate.
Sure. Like I don't.
Yeah,
anyways,
to de-escalate stress, right? Was first and foremost.
I think, yeah.
Make it a little bit more predictable. I would say that's fair. Yeah, I mean, what is an upset really in 1 week hero pools? This is the question, right?
Also true.
It gets into a very nebulous field of probability clouds that somehow clash with each other, and you think you got an upset, but it really isn't, because like they have their fat-tailed bell curve ends where it's like, oh, they pop off in this manner and this team is so bad in this one, and then if they overlap, then you get Chengdu into Shanghai, and yeah, I don't know. Like it's really weird. I don't even know how to unclutter that. And
it feels just like another patch argument where it's just like, should we be patching before the playoffs? No. Should we be adding hero pools in the playoffs? No. So very similar things. Like we're just changing the field that we've been testing on for the entirety of like the regular season.
If we patched every other playoffs before in stages, and then you want to patch before the playoffs and finals, maybe. And that's where we disagree on.
Yeah, I just vehemently disagree. I'm not saying I want the entire season played on one particular patch, but I think the regular season is to find like the best iteration of the game you can, and then make the big kind of sweeping reworks and changes and hero additions in the off season, and then play out the next season. Like I can deal with and handle like hero additions and reworks. Okay, fine, as long as they're not like right before huge grand final games, because that would be really unfortunate. And again, I really dislike big patches, big hero pool changes before big events. And I think the grand finals, I think we'd all agree, is a quite the big event. So yeah, me personally, not a fan.
All right. Anyways, here we go. On to the last one. Do you guys have a specific location you've chosen or are looking at the grand finals? Finals will be played in an online environment. Competing this way versus trying to do a LAN studio means the players only need to arrive in Asia more broadly versus a specific location. That gives us a lot more confidence that we can make everything work operationally. Can we boo that? Is that booable?
Wait, what? Only 2 teams. Wait, where are we?
The last one. The last one. Finals are going to be in an online environment and not in a LAN studio.
What is this? So why are we traveling? Just to like reduce the ping, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking out loud right now. I guess. Sure. I mean,
aren't we having offline events right now in Korea? Is that not happening?
I mean, we had the show match.
We also don't know this is happening in Korea, to be fair.
I mean, it does not specifically say Korea anywhere. I haven't seen anything that specifically says. The assumption is Korea.
Yeah. I would assume as much.
But I don't actually know if it's been confirmed anywhere. If anyone has a link, great. Otherwise, we're going to continue to use Asia broadly. Though I don't think any of us would disagree.
I actually don't know. Yeah, I actually don't know. It just makes sense because everyone seems to be there, right?
100%. Yep. I think it's a good assumption. But if we were to assume Korea, then yeah, you can have live events. I don't know why we're not, but both LPL and LCK apparently chat saying it does offline without an audience. So even if it is in China, can still, feasibly and within legal limits, seemingly have a live studio performance without audience. Why aren't we doing that? I don't know. Is it just the scramble to try and figure this out? Logistics, I get it. I think I'd be okay with a longer break in between like the end of like the playoff qualifiers and then top 4 so that we can have a live LAN environment. I'd be okay with like an extra amount of time added to that to like figure out the logistics to like set this up the right way.
So let's look at the alternatives here. So there's a world in which it is just like operationally impossible to have NA people coming from NA to get into the same building and play on a stage or even in, adjacent studios on the same LAN. There is a world in which just that is the case, and then none of this conversation matters. Do we find that likely at all?
No. We just had somebody from the European region in League of Legends go to Korea, quarantine, and then coach a team on stage. Like, maybe I'm missing something like visa, logistic, lawyer jargon stuff, maybe China wise. I don't know, but I find it very weird to like can't have Western people on stage without like a quarantine. I don't know. I don't know. It's out of my lane. It seems bizarre though.
So then we have to go with like, whatever. I don't even think it's worth it.
But yeah, again, if this is like what has to happen for logistic reasons, I get it. It's unfortunate. You take what you can get. I'm not super mad at it. But if there is a world where we can add some time to have a LAN studio just without an audience, I think that would go a long way in terms of like fan interaction and fan engagement. A lot of buzzwords, but I think that would do a lot better for the broadcast as a whole. I think people want to see the players, and half the time the player cams don't even work. And again, it's a nice Band-Aid fix. It's COVID kind of adaptation, and I applaud the league for trying to get it done, but they don't work. It just, half of them don't seem to work, or they're laggy, or they don't really like show them all that much. I don't know. I'd love to see like player reactions, like returning to normal would be nice.
If you had to choose between an NA Grand Finals and an Asia Grand Finals that were both LANs versus having an NA versus Asia online, but like in the same countries, so you've mitigated ping, which would you rather see?
I know what I know. I won.
I'm not even sure I follow.
Okay, so he's asking if you could choose either we have regional finals in NA and regional finals in Asia, or we have one, and both of those are offline, or we have one big final from both regions, but that's online. I'd
probably take the LANs.
Really?
Yeah, I'd probably just like, I'd wash it. Like, okay, it's COVID. At least we can give you LANs. At least we can give you like not live audience stuff, but we can give you like a proper studio production. Really knock this out of the park. Unfortunately, it has to be within each region. I don't know. I think I'd like that a little bit better.
Also, of course, on top of all the concerns of player safety as well. Like,
yeah,
I'm sure it's easier to. And okay, I'm not going to make any ignorant comments on the feasibility and safetiness of that. The only leagues where like I apparently that's happening for LCK and whatnot. That's interesting. I'd love to see what their system is in order to judge that. But from like, that bubble thing that the NBA is doing,
like, that doesn't make any sense.
That also doesn't work. So I like safe systems, and just one catching it is too much.
It's too much.
And is like,
so you'd rather them travel
and health disaster. I mean, the travel itself is a problem. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's like a good like safety measure. I don't think there's a foolproof safety measure, right? Like either one like definitely has their downsides. I like the guaranteed LAN production. I like that a lot. I think it would go a long way for a season of online play. I think it kind of like not hints at a returning to like normalcy where we can get like somewhat live events, but I think it would, again, I think it goes a long way. I'm not a big fan of like the continuous online play on top of like the quarantining and like logistics of like getting players out there. Can you get all your players out there? Like I do worry that like maybe we'll run into visa problems for certain teams. I don't know.
And this all happens for what? 2 best of 3s and a best of 4?
2 best of 3, yeah. 2 best of 3s and a best of 4.
Or 2 first of 3s and a first of 4.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Is that confirmed?
Yes.
3 best of 3s, losers bracket. Oh, losers bracket.
Oh, true. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So it's a little more. Which needs to be the case. Because if you actually fly there, lose one thing, and then fly home,
and you're out.
That
Sweet.
risk is
that
not worth
it at all. Yeah.
Is that enough though? Because a lot of people in chat are saying like, you know, I need to see my cross regional play, blah blah blah. This whole season would be a waste, blah blah blah. If I don't get to see it, is 3 best of 3s and a best of 4 enough?
Arguably no.
Yeah, arguably not, but at least it's something. Like I definitely hear the cross regional thing. I just think this is just going to be a logistical nightmare. You're going to get okay, again, like I'm leaving it up. I question how good practice environments are going to be. I don't know the accommodations. Like there's a lot that goes into this that I think just keeping it separate might just be a little bit easier and we just have to like bite it. But obviously we're not getting that, and that's just my personal opinion. If I had to choose, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think we will. I think the questions behind logistical feasibility are like way up here in terms of priority, and also safety, of course.
I think that should be
in that number.
Yeah.
And then we can think about competitive aspects. Though I will say, it will keep me up during the long winter nights to think, could like who would win? Like Shanghai, but then Shock, but and then maybe the Flatter, you know, like I couldn't like that. That would really
again like
upset.
I think there is like a sweet middle ground where you can have this format where we have like the 2 best teams from each region go somewhere to compete at just a far later date, so that all of this gets solved. Like you have all the time that you need. It's one of those COVID things, so we're just going to have to bite the bullet. Hopefully we have some content in between during that dead space between like the playoffs and then like the grand finals. I think you can have the best of both worlds where like everything's taken care of safety wise. Everybody has the proper accommodations. I think Blizzard just needs more time to do that, and you can still have it like in a studio. Just give it more time. I think we just need to like add a break to this.
Yeah. I don't know the regional logistical feasibilities of getting tests for everyone involved, literally everyone for production.
I mean, I literally like when we started this conversation, just straight up said like, there's a world in which it's just like, it's just not operationally feasible for reasons that we don't have accessible to us, and no level of like anecdotal evidence and napkin math will like change any of that. So like that whole conversation is non-starter if that's the case, right? So anyways, that was the Jon Spector Q&A. Not the best feeling one, I'm going to be honest. Not a lot of
I mean, I appreciate the community communication. I think that's good. Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at it. I'm glad that they're communicating with, some of the questions around something that has definitely been worried about with COVID. Like, is this going to happen? Like, I don't know. Like, the world's kind of going upside down. Like, are we still doing this? Like, what's going on? I'm glad that we're getting at least like some attention. Granted, we're not getting a ton of answers, but I think it's okay. I'm not mad at it. I'd be more mad if they just didn't say anything. I appreciate the communication, at least as a gesture.
On Twitter. Everybody's favorite medium.
Hey, I agree with that too. Why is this not like some sort of official like statement? Like, this is what we're doing. We've seen your questions. We've actually pulled your questions from Twitter, and John's going to answer them in an official video. That would be great. I don't know why the league can't do this again.
All right. Okay. We're yeah. All right. Let's talk about this.
Get your stuff together.
San Francisco Shock and Tayo from Third Impact and
Big Pog.
Big
Actual
Pogs.
Pog.
Big Pogs. You feel pretty good about that, Joe?
Yeah, 100%. I think this definitely adds a nice touch to this roster that I think needs an added flex player, and I do think that Tayo probably will come in more as a flex than he will be kind of maintaining his Ash Tracer hit scan kind of priority. I think he probably will move into a flex role, something that he has done in the past, to be fair. I'm excited to see such a kind of talented young prospect. Young in age, not in terms of resume, because this kid has been playing literally since like 2017, like on the Japanese World Cup team, was supposed to be on Houston's academy team before that went. Very talented kid, like,
yeah,
just good player all around, working with some of the best coaching in the world, if not the best. We should see this kid turn into an absolute monster. I'm very excited to see what the Shock have in store for him. I think this fills a nice gap. Big thumbs up all around. Happy for Tayo.
And I'm always intrigued just with where players like this under great coaching can go.
Yeah.
Like if we think about Ben Best and we think about Nico,
yep,
and we think where they went, and then we think about, I mean, honestly, to a degree, also Super and Sinatra from season 1 to season 2.
For sure.
Then I'm getting hyped for this because the underlying talent is already very high. Arguably, like, and I'm not even going to comment on it. I literally haven't watched enough contenders to say that. Just like from the perception that we get from a community, there have been other players like Capster, for instance, that where the talent level is probably slightly like considered slightly higher. But just like someone like that, I mean, talent is relative. What is outward and what is inward talent, or like talent that we don't get to see, and that is the specific coachability that a player needs to have in order to fit a style of a coaching staff. And I think that with very few exceptions, this coaching staff has shown that they can do it. So I'm like, this kid must be over the moon.
Oh, and I mean, he's been banging the drum like, get me to Owl, please get me into Owl. I don't know much longer I can do this whole contenders thing, bro. Like he's been like waiting for his call up, and then to be called up on arguably the best team in the world, I think has to be incredible. Yeah. I'm over the moon for him.
Yeah.
To talk about coaching and like prestige and buy-in, I think there's no better coach than Krusty to have a resume to kind of like force you to buy in. Like, oh, you think you know better than a world champion? Oh, you think you know better than the guy who kind of like piloted Boston to like multiple wins? I don't think so. And I'm not saying Tayo thinks that way, but like name a player that has like some sort of like attitude issue and you put him with Krusty, and I think he has to kind of like not submit, but he has to kind of buy in. I don't think you can argue with that. I don't think you can argue with that pedigree. Submit feels a little aggressive, but you know what I mean.
I don't think. Oh gosh, that's the weather clip. It's over. It's all over. Wait, Andy Miller, is that the guy we're going to have on the podcast next week?
Yes, we're getting you, Andy.
So I think like I really hope, because okay, the situation that these players like Sinatra had, like that even like Smurf had, like it was a little bit different. It was like, oh, there's this guy, this crusty coach. We kind of think we can't really say what it is at Boston that made it special. Now he comes to the Shock, and all these players get better and better, and the expectations for those players were very different. Now it's like you're a contenders player, an unproven talent, and like the God's gift to coaching has chosen you to be on the best roster in the world's best team of the last year. That is a different pressure than these other players were on beforehand. And I hope that doesn't get to him, because I think you cannot tell me that Tayo from the sort of aura of his career that follows him isn't at the talent level of a Sinatra as he was perceived in pre-contenders. I think it's very similar.
I think the feeling is similar. I don't think I can be able to measure it though.
Yeah, and of course the color of the energy, like the aggression and like what kind of people these are is very different. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like pure expectation where this kid could go, right? In comparison to Sinatra. I don't think, like, if people recall, Sinatra was kind of popping off in NA, but then, like, when the big dogs came in, like, Seth wasn't doing much. Like, it was just over then, right? Like, Sinatra wasn't on the level of effect back then.
No, as much as everybody probably wants to gas him up now with, like, the hype from back then, definitely was not. No.
Yeah. So, I hope we're fair to Tayo with the expectations. Also, don't even get me.
Got to be better than Super Genji, though.
Nobody better come up and say, "Oh yeah, this kid was brought on to win the championship now, and he better pop off now." No, my dude. No. Like the coaching magic takes some time. Like, do you think they have a magic pot there, and it's like some Asterix and Obelix stuff? Like that's not what's happening in Shock. I'm pretty sure, unless it is, in which case,
unless they've got the magic pill.
Yeah, I don't know. So pressure, hopefully at a comfortable level, but also keep in mind, I mean, the Shock also have nuts talent on their on the roster, and you could even argue that every team has like one serviceable player, even like the super teams where it's like, you're not like necessarily the best in the world at your position, but you're also not an obstacle towards your team winning that. And if Tayo can get to that level, if it was required of him this season, which I don't even know if that's the case, then that is already pretty amazing to achieve.
Oh, certainly. I think that should be like the minimum. As long as you can plug in and like do what Krusty asks of you, like you don't need to pop off. You don't need to like be the star just yet, or ever maybe. I think you're just going to be part of the cog. You're going to be a cog in the Shock machine, and it's going to be sick, and you're going to do incredible. So again, overall, happy for Tayo. Sad to hear about the news of Third Impact kind of like disbanding. I wonder how much that kind of played into Shock signing him, and like him, from my understanding, not having a buyout or being under contract, so he doesn't have a buyout. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, happy for him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about last week's matches a little bit, and let's start a little bit with Asia, shall we? We normally start with NA. Let's go to Asia for a second. And I think we kind of saw on NA. I think we saw like Genji plus Asher Tracer. You saw Winston and Sigma, and then you saw Brig with BAP or a Zen. But on the Asia side of things, we saw a lot more Mercy. I would say you saw a lot more Zarya.
For sure.
What is your take on why we saw those regional changes, and like, do you have one that you think was more correct this week, Joe?
I think NA was way closer to like finding like the right thing. I think I understand why the Mercy like kind of worked. I just don't think you if you play that like 100 different times, like you don't swap off of it and like, okay, like this is like Zen Brig or Bat Brig is just more concrete. It feels like it gels with like the other picks, where like the BAP feels good with the Ashe, the Zen and the Brig feel good with more of the dive centric DPS lineups. I've not been big on like Asia's read on things for a little bit now, going back to like last month with like the Echo on Spark, and like New York still doing their kind of weird thing, but maybe they're an outlier. And now with this, I think Zarya is just worse Sigma. Obviously, two different heroes, but Sigma gives you a little bit more proactivity, where Zarya feels a little bit more with the charge, and the ult takes forever, and the projected barrier really doesn't feels like a reactive tool more than like a tool to engage and find openings rather than rock and flux. I think Sigma's the better pick, even though it is feel a little weird because we're like, oh, well, you have all these dive pieces. Why don't you play something a little bit more mobile? It all kind of works. And I'm starting to wonder if like there's just like no, I always will think that I think there will always be like a refined, like good set of comps, but like you can probably like piecemeal together like a number of different heroes as long as like you maintain like some structure. Like you need a shield hero, stuff like that. So you're not just playing like double flex tanks kind of thing. I think you can kind of piece things together and like still compete. You might not win, but you could probably still get things done. And I think we're seeing that maybe a little bit of a return to Chengdu. We'll get to them, but with the Mercy, with all these different looks, I think NA also had a few different looks as well. I think
they did.
Florida had a little bit of flexibility on control. I thought we saw a lot more Rhine. It felt like Valiant leaned into Rhine comps a lot more, which I wasn't mad at, but I think they just played poorly. But yeah, I think the biggest deltas in terms of like different styles was definitely like the Mercy and the Zarya, which I was not a big fan of. Understand why they work, not a big fan.
I don't want to break open too big of a tangent here, but I always that's why I want these regional finals, because it always feels like you have an inclination as to who gets to those metas quicker. And I wouldn't even say that. I mean, historically, maybe there's a slight bias towards like NA and EU getting it quicker, but maybe that's also just because GOATS is in my head, or like, you know, adapting something new quicker, and then also having a superior interpretation of it, maybe. But I'm not even sure if that's true, because I feel like on several occasions it has been proven wrong, where we're like so confident that something is true, and then as soon as we actually have real touching points, like that theory crumbles under scrutiny. So I feel like we don't. It's really hard to say what the actual better meta interpretation is, and I think that is also only one dimension of that argument, because it's not just which meta is better, but also which team performs this respective metas better,
the best, yeah,
and how that could then even outweigh slight soft countering.
Yeah, looking at like stage 3 of last year, right, where we saw like, okay, well, I guess it's just GOATS, guys. I guess that's just the comp that we're just gonna win. And then Shanghai's like, no, wait, like look at Orisa, look at triple DPS, and look at how much they influence the meta. I think like it's going to be one of those things that you can kind of speculate on. I feel like NA has like much more of a cohesive read on things, whereas Asia's a little bit more kind of all over the place.
And the results,
it could be lack of teams, lack of good teams as well.
And the results too also just make it look like, how does a figured out meta have Chengdu beating NYXL in 5?
Yeah.
Spark 3-0ing Seoul. I
think we're gonna get a better read in week 2.
Sure. We do need to, Yiska. I need to poke you. I gotta poke the bear. The big German. What's the German word for bear?
Yeah.
Bear? Yeah. It's a bear.
Yeah.
So so I need to poke the German bear for a second and say, you took a big stance last week saying London was poised to upset.
You remember it? You guys remember it?
We remember these things. So that did not turn out. So I'm giving you an opportunity to backpedal a little bit.
Well, for one, I'm wrong.
Okay, like come on, like you couldn't have expected Shui to kind of come out and like absolutely like choke on one.
I mean, I would have expected Glister to play from map 1. Like,
you think?
Right, so we didn't really see Glister.
Yeah.
I
mean, we saw him later in the series, but
right.
like,
for sure.
God damn. Like, the thing is, and I still can't really. There are other reasons to believe why that was the case, but it's like, I think that series was reasonably close, where 55 charge is wrong, but not by much. I think like there were some Pepega Clap plays by London in there, and if they don't do them, then this series is significantly closer than it looks at 3-1.
Yep.
I think they like, it wasn't two teams on completely different levels playing each other. So yeah,
you think? Do they kind of feel that way to you?
Yeah. I think if they play a best of 10,
I think the charge was
3-4. Best of 10 or best of 5, so let's say.
Yeah, okay. I would. This could be minimizing the situation, but I felt like Charge just kind of played a little sloppy, where London like had very dire straights. No value on Dragon Blade. Where's Glister? J-Mac up to his old stuff again. Bernard having an absent
Jimmy Macaroons is back this week, and it was not.
I look at that team and I go, you're week 2, you're going to get slapped. Charge, I feel like, just had a bad game. And I know that's very general, and I know that's minimizing like the win, but felt actually a little bit more separated.
Okay, so I don't actually want to put it on J-Mac, because I feel like,
of course he does.
I think he contributed.
Yeah, the thing is, okay, like, yeah, haha, we're making some fun of it. This team is also not massively on a downward spiral. I think they would, like, they're a mid-tier team. I don't think they should be at all unsatisfied with where they are based on where they started. Like, it's actually quite great who they can compete with. I also think like this memed clip where, I mean, I contributed, I'll say it outright, but like this, when J-Mac is alone on the card at the end, what's he supposed to do? Just not be on the card? Or
yeah, of course.
Like, someone had to touch, right? Yep. Like, and right. I don't think there is a way for him to contribute to the fight and touch card at the same time with jump cooldowns. And I don't think there's a feasible way to play that any other way. At best, he draws away some of the backline. But also the card wasn't deep enough to really threaten Charge to have to stall the card before they win the fight on the gate. So what's the J-Mac got to do? Like,
100%.
That's just
in that one instance, like, yeah, you're gonna look bad because you're forced to do something that's incredibly unintuitive. But it's everything that leads up to that point that I have problems with, and it's not just him; it's everybody. Where is Glister? Sanguinar, God bless him. He's the rock. I usually don't have much to say about Sanguinar. Usually a good player. Can't really bag on him too much because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
But Babel, Shui, get him out. Don't want to see him no more.
Nah.
Zero value on your Dragon Blades, bro. One kill. One kill got a comment.
Yeah, I mean, the Dragon Blades were not the best, but you also don't, like, you just don't.
That's a tool you just don't have.
Let's separate the player Shui from the Genji that was there in this game. Like, you don't know what ideally, if there was a way, you want Glister also on Genji.
Yes. But again, like, yeah, if I could replicate Glister so he can play both roles, that'd be great. But we ain't got that technology yet.
And therefore, like, if you gotta fill, like, Shui has a crazy good Mei, for instance, right? We agree.
If memory serves me, I do recall. Yes.
Kit's a pop-off with the right clicks, I will say. Like, also his charge rate is probably pretty ridiculous if I recall correctly, or just like biased. I don't know. I haven't looked at stats, but there is something to be said about players being brought in for specific things and then having to extend that. And there's also curveballs that a meta throws to you.
I agree.
Like, yeah.
I think you can. I think KSF is a great example of a Genji that like looks uncomfortable, but like has a very clear job and does it well. If you go back and watch their series against Atlanta on tracer duty, KSF is to smother Edison at every turn. They know he's going to flank. He's on him like glue. Does his job. Gets some kills, pressures him out, burns some cooldowns. Sweet. 0 value with Dragon Blade, but still has a job. Tell me what Shui did.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing. Like, who tells him when to play? Does he decide that? Is it called?
I agree.
Like,
I agree. Like, again,
is
like,
it Shui or is it Genji in London?
No, because I think you can put, again, like, we can move Glister around either way, and I think you could probably keep Babel on hitscan, and that could be fine. But I think Genji needs a good pilot. And if you don't have a good pilot for that Genji, either don't run it, which again, like, what do you do outside of that? Or you have to move your star player to Genji, who has a history of playing a good Genji. I think Glister needs to pilot the Genji, and then you kind of have to bite the bullet on hitscan. It's too impactful. It gives you too many good fight-ending tools. It requires a lot of mechanics to get down right. You need Glister on Genji.
Maybe that's the play. And of course, like we say that having seen 0 scrims of how
100%
how Glister's Genji actually performs, it's like
I got a hands up on that one.
That's it's hard to. That's a general discussion, and we're going to have it later. So I'm going to postpone because that's a core element of the point
for sure
about Super. But I think, in an ideal world, this esports requires you to think of roles not as the individual that plays that role, but the function that a hero has within each specific composition. And then you can say that London's Genji was bad.
Yes, London's Genji was bad.
It's a symbiotic relationship of many different factors that are contributed from many different people that make the Genji bad. In the same sense that season 2 Philadelphia Fusion main tent was perceived to be bad. Was it Sado that was bad? Or was it the entire team that didn't play Reinhardt well?
Because I thought you were going like the Fraggy route, which I was going to...
It's not just the guy that sits behind the Reinhardt character that makes that character work. 100%. It is the entire team in this esport that makes it work to a higher degree than arguably any other esports I've ever been part of. Like in League of Legends, you can sit in your lane. You can talk about lane control of this particular laner.
There's an individual aspect.
And then there's also the jungler that impacts. So there's also a synergistic thing. You also talk about setting up star players in CS, but it is nowhere to the degree of like interconnectedness as it has been in Overwatch. I think as an esport, and I'm surely forgetting some others, but it feels like indistinguishable from that. I almost think like we need new language to talk about that in order to also protect players from takes, because you can most definitely say, like, it is very different to say JMac was terrible this weekend and the JMac looked terrible this weekend because London doesn't know how to.
Yes.
And then, especially from the outside, right? Like when we don't have any information, we don't have the comms, whatnot, right?
Sure.
I agree. I do even struggle to like reach back. A lot of history in esports is like individual like 1v1 games, and then I look at like WoW, and that's only 3v3, where I do think it is very interconnected. It's still only 3 characters on a team versus another 3 characters. This is 6-on-6. That increases the magnitude a ton. You could look at like Bloodline Champions or like Battle Right, these kind of like smaller little niche esports that are very similar to WoW in that sense, where they're all kind of interconnected and it's kind of almost Overwatch light. But again, I would agree. Like this is a team game. There are many team games, but this is the most team game. This feels like you need every cog in the machine kind of like spinning at the right rates and managing the fabrication machine to get the right result. Because if one thing goes wrong, then it's a knock-on effect to everything, and I feel like it's much more. It's scaled up in Overwatch. I agree.
It's scaled up, and I think it's also much more. It's much less transparent as to what those actual parts are. It's one thing to be like, Valorant is a team game, guys, right? But like, you can very much look at like, oh, so and so was on this part of the map. They lost that duel. That opened up this. And that it's much different to be like, oh, well, this ability was on cooldown, which you don't see in the kill feed. But if you go back and watch the viewer, you can see it there, and you have to almost like reverse all these steps to come to the right conclusion as to like why what appeared to be a boneheaded play was actually just like a victim of making the right moves or whatever. So
I think a great example of that is Fraggy from Philadelphia in season 1. Kid fed his pants off, but I think that was, weirdly enough, I think that was the plan. I think that was the idea, to create all this space to let Carpe just have his complete field day to work and be an individual. And that's why they were successful for that big stretch. I don't think Sato was bad at that. I think they were shifting into a much more structured and standard style of play instead of just throw Fraggy at the wall and you better capitalize on this window that he's given you because we just lost our main tank because I told him to. I don't think you can have that high of a first death rate. And again, the number escapes me, but it was astronomically high and have that much results. I think that was the plan, weirdly enough.
And okay, let me instill this thing, this thought experiment in viewers to understand the point. Thinking of a player's performance and only judging him personally for it is a mountain with only one side. Now imagine a mountain with only one side. That can't work, space. Right? Yeah. How there's a backside of a mountain, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So there is an interconnectedness towards the entire team. The mountain doesn't work without a backside. What is it?
Falls over.
Is it a shader of thin things that just float into space? No, that's not what a mountain is. Mountain has a backside, and it is part of the player's performance. They hold each other up, both sides. It doesn't work, and we're consistently only talking about the one side of the mountain.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would have maybe changed the metaphor to a tower, but I think that's nitpicking for nitpicking's sake.
The Tower of Babel?
Maybe.
There you go.
Jesus. All right.
We got there. It was a little tough. We had to translate, but we got there.
Let's talk about my weekend's malding moment, and that was the Chengdu Hunters versus NYXL. This was so Chengdu ends up winning 3-2. And man, we saw Chengdu even gave him the first map for free.
Gave the first 2 maps for free.
Can I tell the story, John? How it happened? How it all transpired?
Yeah.
In voice?
Sure.
Okay.
Shoot.
So we're sitting in voice with our friends who, of course, absolute degenerates and have been up all night. Wait, what was that time? 6 a.m., 8 a.m.? When you guys
I think I passed out at 7. I think I was a little after our buddy.
So sometimes we watch the Asia games for Europeans. It's of course it's an amazing time for me. It's exactly my wake up time on the weekends. I just roll out of bed and then watch some Asian Overwatch. For Kenobi and Joe, it is of course very different. And so we watch the game and Kenobi is at his wit's end. He's I can't, and logs off, right? So the catch up begins. I would have loved for Kenobi to be there, but he wasn't. And then I tweeted at him. And at some point in the evening in Europe, my DMs go pling. And I see Kenobi. And he goes, "Don't tell me they won." And I go, "I love you, Kenobi. And I need you to know that." And Kenobi goes, "Oh my God." And then he asks why. And then he says, "Maybe it's me watching." Like, he is the hex of Chinese Overwatch. That is sadly the case. This man is hexed to never see a Chinese team get a big win while he's physically present. And of course, Joe was also another one, but like, it's less fun now with Joe because he has already sunk into absolute Chinese.
I'm on arc 2.
Overwatch nihilism.
Like I'm past the Chinese, supporter arc. I'm on act 2 of my story.
Terrible.
Thank you.
It's terrible. Like I miss the old Joe, the care for Chengdu Joe.
How do you?
If they continue to perform, maybe they can win back my favor. But I'm a hurt man.
How do you like Pharah Genji as a DPS duo?
I don't. But when you have people like this, I'm about it. And to be fair, Jinmu kind of fed his pants off these first 2 maps. Yeah, I think this is just narratively speaking. I have a piece in the works to kind of dive into this. I'll be writing that a little later after I get a much needed nap. This felt like a return to Chengdu. This felt like a return to like the I'm gonna pull you down and make you play my game kind of Chengdu. And granted, New York has been a little wily themselves this season, so I'm excited to kind of go into this and really detail it. I'm going to probably struggle at times to like really understand what the heck's going on if it's as Chengdu as I'm hoping. But I think generally speaking, this is Chengdu on comfort picks, a lot of the same old banging the drum, play the comfort picks, play what you're good at, don't play the meta, blah, blah, blah. Like, you've heard me talk about it before. I'll spare you. That's my kind of thoughts.
I liked it more when the Chengdu Bob was still high on the leaf.
Maybe again, it can return. I'm not ruling out the possibility of like a backstory to Chengdu Bob, right? Like we could have that, the prologue, but I got to see a little bit more from Chengdu before that happens.
All right. Okay, let's go back to the NA side. So the NA side, Joe, as you kind of said before, felt a lot more figured out. Whether it was the better form of the meta or not, definitely felt like, I think overall a lot more cohesion across like the region. Totally. As far as the compositions we saw, the strategies that we saw incorporated on different maps, and with different heroes. Can you? I mean, let's see. Where
pitch it, toss it, fastball me.
I'm trying to decide where to go on this one. Can we just Can we just talk about Atlanta for a second?
Sure. We got it. I think we're a little late on time anyway, right? So let's.
I think Atlanta. It's tough because I think Valiant. So to look at their opponents, I think says a lot about Atlanta's play. I think Atlanta played well in both games. I think Valiant. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say so. Atlanta sweeps LA Valiant 3-0, and then they lose to the Florida Mayhem 3-1.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
I think Valiant probably had the worst game of their season against Atlanta. Genuinely speaking, I think they played horribly. Their first fight's on Control. Good evidence point. Go watch those. All over the place. Incredibly just frantic. No idea what the heck's going on. Contrasting that to first fights with Florida. Very controlled. They're playing the same exact compositions, and I'm hearing a lot of like gripe on like Valiant's comps. Florida's running the same thing, guys. Look completely different. Where they're rotating, how they're rotating. Again, on Volskaya, not to completely jump over Control, but Volskaya, tragic for Valiant. Winning fights and then throwing them away with Dreamer and crew, like making a 3v5 dive attempt, whiffing and giving up a tick for free because of that decision. Strange Dragon Blades. I think KSF played fine, but again, not a strong Genji. Overall, I think Valiant just played horribly. Florida, on the other hand, great at accepting the dive that Atlanta wants to do. They're rolling in with the ball. They're having Edison and Erster both play the flanks individually. Edison completely just snuffed both series, not getting a lot done. To be fair, that's kind of like the 50-50. You're either going to shut down Erster or you're going to shut down Edison. Somebody's getting that dive attempt off. Just happened to be Edison a lot of the time. Kind of sad to see that they didn't rotate onto the Ashe once that like was happening, where he's just getting snuffed and snuffed and snuffed. I think Gangnam Jin had like a fantastic couple lamps where he's just negating pulse bombs just with an ability. Like, oh, cool, you stuck my Sigma? Sweet. Never mind. It's negated. What is Tracer going to do? There was a little bit of rigidity there. It felt like they wanted to play the ball. It worked against Valiant because they were kind of leaning into the Ryan comps, but I will kind of come to Valiant's defense and say it's not the comps. They just played bad. Like, it's just one of those games where it's just like, if you look at like even just the positioning and contrast that to Florida, same comps, whole different story. Valiant just played bad. Florida played really, really well. And I think Atlanta, again, sits in the middle. They played good. I think they played fine. I liked a lot of their very coordinated dive attempts. Again, I think a lot of people are still struggling to kind of get a grasp on like how fights are going. So you're seeing a lot of like 2-man down ult attempts and nothing. I give you a little bit of slack there, but I think Atlanta played good. Just Florida played better.
We only had 2 matches. So out of the 4, 7, 8, 9 matches that we had in NA over the weekend, we only had 2 that weren't 3-0'd. Yep. Fuel beat Houston 3-2, and then Mayhem beating Atlanta 3-1.
Bless up on that Fuel game, by the way. Oof. That was rough. Was that not the C9, the big old Houston C9? Like after the first kill, like they get a pick on the flex, and then they just don't dodge. Like they could have won that. Like that was very, very winnable for them. But yeah, won't dive into it too much, but. I missed the Friday games.
Oh, it's so
not a big deal. I'll G.
So let's I think maybe we should just go and we should kind of end the show on this one. You're gonna love it. The San Francisco Shock versus the Boston.
The best
Uprising.
For last. Super Genji.
Yeah, so if you've been living under a rock, haven't been following what happened over the weekend, the San Francisco Shock decided to send Super onto the Genji. That's right, Super main tank extraordinaire on Genji. And Yiska, I have heard legends about your reaction to this, by the way. Can you regale the tale, or am I or am I just getting a Joe birthday moment and that wasn't actually it at all?
Okay, no. Let me set it up this way.
All right.
Okay. So my position comes from someone that has a certain attitude towards sportsmanship, and I'll explain that a little bit, and then also to context. So, for instance, I'm not sure if that's still a FIFA rule or whatnot, but when I grew up, if you, for instance, outplayed the goalkeeper and then did some stuff on the goal line, like put the ball in the goal line and put it in with your head or something to ridicule the opponent, this goal would be disallowed and you would be yellow carded. Okay? Huh? You cannot do that.
Sounds boring.
That
sounds like the world that I want to live in.
Goalie's ankles. And he just like dives the wrong way, and you just kind of like do a funny dance and like kick it in. Like it's just like banned.
I'm not sure what the specific definitions were, but there is a specific point of humiliation that does not fly.
Fair enough.
I will also say that the context of this match is that it's a team that had a rough patch, had a mild resurgence, I would say, but has recently fallen off a cliff once again.
Yeah, definitely fallen off.
It's a team that had multiple retirements, not because people like won the lottery and are moving on to better things, but it's obviously a dire experience. And the only thing you're doing by putting super on Genji is making them the butt of the joke. To me, anyway. I was not a fan of that. And
yeah,
the way it was framed was not I was not a fan of that, especially because they didn't adhere to that story whatsoever after the match was done.
Yep.
I felt for those players. I wasn't entertained by it. And I might be a killjoy for that. That's fine. I don't actually know what the right thing to do there is, but it didn't have a good taste in my mouth.
I had really conflicting emotions of this because I kind of felt the same way when I heard that Super was in on Genji. Like there was like this natural excitement of like, oh cool, someone's playing something different. Mm-hmm. Sweet, like they're letting a tank flex on whatever. He might be pretty good at it. Let's, whatever. And then I looked at A, who they were playing, the Boston Uprising, and B, that they played him for multiple maps. It wasn't just like one map, like haha, like let's do something different. We don't really have a great feel on Genji. Let's just throw super in anyway, or whatever. Like it wasn't like one of those situations. It felt very anti-competitive to me. And I'm not the fun guy for this. I can already feel the YouTube comments like breathing down my neck on it and stuff. And like this is coming from like a longtime tactical croucher in Halo and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm the dude who'd get the yellow card when it comes to dunking and 360 sniping or whatever else you want to do. But there's I saw a post. I can't remember where I saw it, but someone was like, if Boston didn't want to lose to Super Genji, they should field a better team or something like that.
That was mentioned on the broadcast, and it didn't sit right with me.
I want to put my head through a wall when I hear shit like that.
Yeah,
wasn't better.
Not
how that works, unfortunately.
And I also think you can't frame it in a way where it's like, wow, is Chalk amazing? Is this an amazing team where they can win 5.5 B6?
Yeah.
That's how you frame that if you want to do that.
Because I mean, let's be real. Super's Genji wasn't good. It wasn't.
But I think you have to talk about it though. Like it's such a glaring elephant in the room. That's like, are we just gonna ignore this? Are we gonna have to address it? You're gonna have to talk about it at some point. I think the overall framing probably could and probably maybe should be. I don't know. I'm not a broadcaster, but maybe it should be about the Shock and less about the style attempt. And I know that the Shock are he was the best in scrims, and okay, great. So if Tayo's not eligible, we'll be seeing Super against Florida, right? I struggled to see that that's going to happen. If it happens, it happens. Great. Cool. I can put a lot of more faith into what you're saying, but I have a lot of speculation that necessarily was the case.
I also think it is important to not get context wrong, because you will have seen something similar in your sports league, in your favorite top tier sports league, and think it was flying there. So why not here?
Sure.
It is very different. And I cannot emphasize this enough. It is very different systemically how these leagues operate.
Yeah.
It is very different if you have physiologists, like the guys that do massages and
sports physiologists. I think
physiologists, psychologists, reasonable work-life balance, lot of money where you can laugh to the bank with this after the match.
Totally.
Where it isn't consuming your entire self-worth. It is very, very different, especially also because these players are between 18 and 22 or whatever they are. Yep. With not having gone through this rigorous youth academy system where at 14 you get PR lessons and whatnot, and also already get set up for these entertainment businessy things. these people come from their like child's playroom where their PC was in, and then get into the Overwatch League, and then they have to be ready. That is a very different scenario than a millionaire walking off the field humiliated and having gigantic support systems, multi-million-dollar support systems behind them.
Totally.
And under that context, that, like, I'm not telling you what to feel here. I'm just saying, use that in your evaluation of that scenario, because it is very different. Like, the hours are also very different. Like, I just got done talking with a childhood friend of mine who plays like top tier soccer in Europe, and he will tell you 40 hours and it's done. Yes, I have to look at my diet. Yes, I can't do certain things that my contract prohibits me from. By the way, that's also to a degree true in Overwatch League.
Totally.
But like, I can chill, and I probably play almost as much FIFA as I play regular football. Like, that's just right. It's not the same. It's just not.
100%. And to be fair, and I hear you, chat, and I agree that there is a level of blame that has to be placed on the Boston Uprising organization. If you put yourself into a position over the course of this season, over the course of last season, where you're gonna get styled on, or if you're performing that poorly and you don't make substantial changes, you do shoulder some of the blame. I won't say all of it. This isn't, just get better. Because again, I've talked specifically on length at that of how difficult it is to just get better. But there is something systemic to this that doesn't, you don't get to wash your hands with this and just go, well, the shock is beating up on me. You have to take some responsibility for that.
I don't know that any team in a competitive environment deserves in any situation to get, like, if we use Yiska's like pure competitive like definition on it, I don't know that anybody. Do you think that Boston is not fielding the best team that they can? Do you feel that?
Of course.
Do you think that Boston is not trying to sign the best players that they can?
It's difficult to say.
We don't have all that information, right? But do we have reasonable information to believe that there's a controllable reason why the Boston Uprising aren't better?
Well, I have speculations as to
why.
We
have
definitely not because of. There's no discernible reason in the willpower that these players exhibit.
I mean, look at all the good talent that has left that team. Crusty.
Yep.
Gone because you just can't field a working relationship with the best coach in the world.
Do you punish and style on the players then for something that you could argue is and again, management? And again, like I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, and I'm trying to like I'm trying to navigate. Like I don't want to be like Debbie Downer and be like, because honestly, I liked seeing Super Genji. That was really fun. I would say that there's no other team in the Overwatch League I would bet that would not play Super Genji, even though that they could beat probably 5 or 6 other ones with Super Genji at least. Like, and that's the thing that's kind of weird. I'm like, there is this tolerance threshold here that you have to feel like you're 95.5 in order to do that, right?
No, do some crazy stuff.
There's no other team that I think is down that low.
And anybody who's saying it's Paris, I'm gonna crack you over the head.
Let me also say, I'm not blaming Shock here. Like, Shock is not to blame for these systemic issues or systemic differences, because issues like we're growing like tiny thing where there's singular clubs that have double the evaluation, triple, quadruple the evaluation of our entire league, right? It's very like these people make like 50K a year. Like that's not comparable to someone that makes 50 million or whatever, right? It's very different. So Shock can only do whatever is allowed within the rules.
Of course.
They did not overstep the rules. I can feel a way about how they framed that thing. I don't want to get them punished for anything. I don't make them responsible for what is happening. That is entirely in their rights, but we just individually have to decide if this is cool. And I'm not telling you what to feel. I'm telling you what I felt, and not that's as far as I go with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not making any prescriptive arguments here. Like, it's just to express what my emotional thought process that is.
Totally. I think it's good.
There are some people, and I'm reading it in chat now too, who are saying that maybe Super was just the best Genji on the team. Do you think that there's a world where that is the truth? Where Rascal's having issues inside or outside, they're taking a decay moment and like saying take
giving
some time
him a break,
off.
maybe.
There could be some carrot and stick going on there. We don't have access to that. It definitely wasn't positioned that way on Twitter. And from everybody else, it definitely wasn't positioned as this was a competitive integrity move. Like, this is the best team that we can field for this. Instead, it was like, look at these DMs. Haha.
Yeah, look, we scrimmed.
And it also and it also sucks because like that's not inherently incriminating on itself.
No.
So
it's neither right nor wrong. Like it like you said, it's not incriminating or like gonna completely allow you to walk. It would be interesting to see if this was to continue. And again, if Tayo can come in, get league approval, and be ready by Friday, I expect him to play. And if not, better be Super. Because if that's the best roster you can field, and it's not just styling at Boston, I would imagine you would continue that. And we would see a trend of continuing to play Super on Genji. If not,
who does Shock play this weekend?
They play Florida and they play Vancouver.
So Shock play Florida and Vancouver. They're 83-17 over Florida, 93-7 over Vancouver. Again, very early odds.
Sure.
That Vancouver one, I feel like we would expect to see Super Genji again, unless if they run a Genji.
I think Genji will continue to be run. I think, again, we'd probably see it against Florida if that's the best roster you can field. If that's the best lineup, the best 6 players with given the meta that you can field, you play that against Florida. If you play it not against Florida and you play against Vancouver,
here's the counter question for everyone. Can we provably make the argument that Super is not the worst Genji on the Shock?
Can we provably? No. I think it's very difficult.
Does Violet not have the best, some of the best, like very high DPS?
You can have.
Did Striker
DPS
play Genji?
Striker
Doesn't Choi
Genji
also flex to other roles in solo
you
queue?
you can have accounts on the ladder that do play DPS. I would not use that as an evidence point, though. I think that's very different.
I also don't know that any of them spent like there is like this win-win type of like media mentality of like, do we know that Violet asked to play Genji? Do we know that would look and see like, like there's kind of like that weird
I would hope that that's not the sealer.
But again, right? So like if you're a coach and you're like, whatever, what are we gonna do for Genji? Like, I guess we'll do Rascal again, or maybe we'll just won't run Genji at all, and Super's in your DMs. You're like, dude, I got a Genji, man. Let me do a Genji, blah, blah, blah. And you wait, you go, it's against Boston. And his Genji honestly isn't the worst thing in the world, and everybody would think that this is funny. Like there is a world in which like it could just be one of those fleeting in the moment decisions of like
that. I think that's fine, and it's like a haha, we got Boston and we did a funny bit, but then I wouldn't then big up this whole like scrim angle where it's like, oh, we scrimmed with him, and it's giving off this feeling, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, right? But it's giving this the idea that this is the best 6 players that they can field for whatever reason at this current point in time, and that's fine. If that's generally the case, then we should see that continue. As long as Tayo doesn't have visa problems or visa success, and can immediately come in and play, we won't get that question answered. But
there is also the aspect of, maybe players did need a break or something, and there wasn't like
I think that's a very
the
real
best
world.
one technically, yes, but he needed a break or whatever.
Sure.
Like there's there is a little bit more nuance to like, is this the best 6? Because especially when you're playing as often as you are. But I think overall, and here's the big thing. I don't want people to take away that it wasn't fun to watch Super play Genji, and it wasn't fun to watch a player switch roles and do relatively well. It sucked that it was against Boston. There are parts of it that aren't answered that didn't feel great. Yeah. And I think that we have to, like, I found myself balancing and bouncing back and forth on it a lot of the time. Like, ultimately, viewership was great. Think of all the clips that were there. Think of all that. Like, that's probably an overall net positive thing. Probably good for, like, super stream, too, and everything else. And then the negative sides, like, think of those players on Boston. Like, think of the Boston fans. Think of what that means for Boston's management, good and bad. And, or motivating or not motivating or whatever. And it's just kind of.
And again, weird. I think looking at this in like a vacuum, I think there's not much of a problem here, but it's the problem that these players on Boston are struggling. They're very visibly through like Yiska said, through the history of their retirement kind of evidence and resume. A lot of players leaving. Some players leaving for non-negotiable reasons. But regardless, there's a lot of other players that have just parted ways with this team for a number of reasons and just completely left the scene. And I don't think there's a bigger team that has completely just ejected talent like they have. Their history in terms of letting good players go and recruiting less than stellar talent to fill their shoes, very high as well. This isn't just a vacuum case. This is like very systemic, and I do feel for the coaches. I do feel for the players. I do question the management. Like, what is going on? Why is it that last season, or maybe even the end of season 1, with Krusty leaving, we have just been on a downwards trend to like meme status? You are a Shanghai, Florida bye week at this point. Why is that consistent throughout this time period? This is like, you have your peaks 100%. Like, nobody can take that away from you. But overall, across the average, bottom, period. No question. Like, can't be argued. In hero pools, in GOATs, even towards the, I guess technically they qualified for playoffs, but in season 1. But again, didn't perform very well for a number of reasons, obviously, with some wrongdoings and whatnot, and potential players leaving. But something doesn't sit right with me with this Boston lineup, and I definitely think it impacts the players. And I think you can see that with some of the Twitter posts and some of like the outcry. That's what I'm getting through some of these Twitter posts is, what do we do? I don't know what to do. We're only doing as much as we can, and then we get Super Genji. Like, it sucks. I feel for them 100%. I can't blame the shock. I can blame how it's handled. I can blame Boston.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thing of everything. Right? Yeah. Like the insufficiency of everything here that makes this problematic. And I also, like someone in chat pointed out, I think on the surface fair argument where they say, wait, why didn't you have that energy towards Chipsa? Well, because on several occasions, Christopher has come forth, and I think he has a lot of, like, okay, depending from where you come from, of course, but I think he has a lot of skin in the game here to be sincere in this. Yeah. And I truly believe that they don't insert him for just
memes. Yeah.
They sincerely believe that when they put him in, he is at least on par with their plan A. Yeah. So, and that's why you also only saw him once. And we would have seen him before and I saw the meta progression. That's also like, I sort of saw this happening where Christopher was here. He told us, like, we might see Chipsa. I saw in scrims that Doom was played until that point. I think it was a Monday when we had him on. And then things change over the week, and then he's out. Why? Against who did Chipsa play?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you.
I can't remember.
I know he played pretty poorly, but
I want to say, was it Valiant?
I
Vancouver?
didn't particularly care for it.
Vancouver. Which Vancouver? The new Vancouver?
The new one.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with you.
I certainly see the point there in that context.
But I think
not amazing either. But I will say it is very different. Like the baseline of what does that do to these players is very different. That once again, that's nothing that Fusion should consider in their evaluation of whether or not this is good. Just like Shock shouldn't. But I feel, for me personally, looking at that situation, there's contenders players coming in and having a legitimately Overwatch League level Doomfist play against them is not the level of humiliation. Also because they haven't had to suffer through this for an entire season. They just got in and they're happy to be here. Like nobody's really getting beaten down here.
Yeah, Vancouver could have came on and actually done really well, and they could have looked different. They didn't. But like potentially there was the opportunity there. I also think that against just about any team that week, especially like bottom third teams, I think you would have played the same players and the same strategies, because that was on Oasis, right? So Oasis control. And like you'd probably play. It's a little bit harder with Doomfist on like non-control maps because there's so many different parts, and like
it depends on the meta. Yeah,
do you want Chipsa jumping off of Doomfist at any point? Probably not.
Definitely not.
So
like Doomfist the entire.
So like control makes a ton of sense for that. Whereas those like payload maps where you're going through A, B's, and C's is kind of like it's I think more nuanced.
Do you think Fusion could have milked Chipsa more and still gotten very safe wins throughout this season?
Sure.
Yes.
By playing him more.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Could have easily styled on people and chose not to. So that's why I feel like Christopher and the Fusion have been consistent with what they're saying. The Shock, they might be genuinely, this might just be, okay.
Whatever.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is the best 6. There's a lot of speculation around if that's the case. It feels really... I have a hard time believing that. That's
again, we are arguing for emotion here. Yeah. It is impossible for me to believe that Super is a better Genji than Rascal, than Violet, than
Choi.
Like Choi. Okay, sure. They don't have enough tech to fit in technically.
So cross Choi out.
So, like, there were other options. I believe even Twilight would probably feasibly play it, honestly. But that's a different story. But also, I'm not telling you how to feel about the Chipsa situation. I'm telling you,
feel bad.
That's why I felt different about this.
Yeah.
It did feel a little Harlem Globetrotters versus Washington Generals to me. Except you know what you're going to, what you're getting when you buy that ticket, right? And everybody on the Generals knows
everybody
what
understands
there to do.
This is meant to be for fun,
there to be,
and not standings and regular season accomplishments. Again, we're back on the same old Boston bandwagon. I'm gonna bang that drum again. Fix it.
Yeah.
Not just get better. I think you have to blow this team up. I think you have to really like look at deep-seated issues and why you can't hold talent, why you can't recruit talent. Maybe it's a budget thing. Maybe I don't know. Hard to say. Something's got to change. You have good pieces. Why can't you find the success that other teams with good pieces find?
Really great.
Not an easy question.
There might be an answer to it. Like, I believe that there is an answer to it. That's not just like, oh, we don't know, or we thought we were going to do better, or we thought, or blah, blah. It could just be very much like, this is the money we have. This is the player we could get. We're a bad team. Who wants to come play for a bad team right now for $50K?
Yeah, it's tough. It's getting to a point where that genuinely is going to be the case. But I think there are systematic problems that lead to that I think need to be addressed.
Could you imagine what that would have been like at a homestand if they threw a Super on a Genji? Like, imagine if it was in Boston.
Library.
They do it in Boston.
You might literally get things thrown at you. Genuinely.
Yeah. Boston
fans are kind of rowdy, from my understanding.
Chat, we got to get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Oh, we had fun. Man, I didn't realize that we talked for this long. We did talk for a long time. A lot of it just reiterating Super Genji points. But anyways, thank you so much. No new patrons this week, but a big thank you to our patron producers. Battlecrab Pin, Lotion, Charlie L Audio, Compass, Pork Chop, Sammy, Kasha67, Kushi Kopi, Shara Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Refine Bean, Rex Zane, Roger B, Fabled Steven, Owen, Chris R34444, Yiska is holding me hostage, please send help. I'm under Yiska's desk, please send help. Yiska says, Fishers, Fisher, 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 Fish. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you like the show, want to support it, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. We are going to be doing a game night this Friday, right after Spike Drop, which records live at noon Pacific time, and then we usually start game night around 2 Pacific time at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod. We'll be streaming it live there. Please come join us, have some fun. New subs, Joe, what do we got?
The absolute mad lad himself, Chris R34444, gifted 10 subs towards the beginning of the show. So thank you so much for your continued support. That's incredible. Thank you so much. Unco also subbed. I believe that's a resub, but thank you for sticking with us for 119 episodes. It's been quite the ride. Shrugzix gifted 2 gifted subs. Thank you very much for your donation and donation to the community. Telemaki and DevStream7 also subbed to the stream as well. So thank you so much. And if you also, feeling the COVID pinch, you can also go on iTunes, give a 5-star iTunes review. Helps us a lot with discoverability and all that good stuff. And yeah, you don't have to pay anything to do that. And we can still shout you out on the show.
Woohoo! Yiska, shout outs to the week. Where can people find you?
So I'm probably coming back. I'm going back to the doctors. It seems I've evaded surgery, which is so probably going to start producing content tomorrow again. Will probably be an Overwatch piece. I have an idea where Eric gave me a cool outline that I want to explore. Other than that, once again, getting into Valorant. Did a bunch of coverage on the We Play Invitational last week.
Great job, by the way. That was a ton of fun. I read and watched everything that you put out as well as the whole tournament. And so that was awesome.
Talk to some cool players. Look, if you don't like the game, just follow artists. For the value.
That interview, the post-match interview, was my favorite Valorant moment so far.
He's a character. He is a character.
Valorant moment so far.
Just imagine an esport where the villain is actually the best player in the world. That is currently what is happening. Now he's still kind of nice about it, but he has some spice to it. Where if he plays it off and actually becomes like that super villain character, that unbeatable guy, and keeps delivering like that. Ooh, I don't think we had that. We had something.
It's been a long time.
We had people outside scenes like Ado in no, not Ado. What's his name?
Abdo.
Dopa. Yeah, Dopa on in League of Legends. Never actually played competitive for a meaningly long time.
I think he played one qualifier for a champion season, and then went to China and boosted for plates full of cash.
Yeah, it's just bad. And then other than that, it's usually just guys that sit down and grind or have a mild attitude. Even Sinatra, throughout, having that paper image, he matured and just artist is just going in, and he also does it all. He's so complete in everything. Just as a character, if you want to get it into anyone, just look at G2 Esports. It's a fine team to follow at the moment.
Oh, certainly.
Sweet. Joe, as for you, shout out to the week. Where can people find you?
On all the socials, that's at Volamel, Volamel. Got a little pot stir coming in for Valorant. Is NA better? Is EU better? We're gonna find out, hopefully. Post-COVID. Don't know. And then we're looking at Chengdu's upset over New York. That'll be probably out sometime this week. And then hopefully towards this weekend, we're gonna have another feature about a player that has injected himself quietly, but injected himself into the Rookie of the Year discussion. So I'll let you speculate on who that might be.
Ooh. As for me, you can find me everywhere at Kickedtripod, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at youtube.com/Jon Horseman. Thanks for tuning in to episode 119. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, tomorrow at noon, to preview this week's matches. Thanks. Bye.